What's up, guys? Justin here with TheSketchUpEssentials.com, back with another SketchUp modeling tutorial for you. So in today's video, we're continuing our series on modeling out a workshop building inside of SketchUp. This video is brought to you by the SketchUp Essentials course. The SketchUp Essentials course is my complete course for teaching you how to use SketchUp. So we get in depth on everything from start to finish, everything from learning to use the different tools, learning to model a house inside of SketchUp, how to create plans from that house in layout. So if you want to get more in depth on your SketchUp instruction, make sure to check that out at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/course. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. All right, so you can see how I've made a couple changes from where we left off last week. So first off, I've reversed these vertical posts so that this piece of wood is on the outside rather than the inside, and I've also removed the 2x12s running along the front. I'm figuring we're going to be able to do this with a regular 2x6, and so we've got these two 2x6s in here. And now for today's video, there's a couple things we want to do. The first thing I want to do is I want to add trusses to my model. Now, one thing, you can come in here and model out your trusses manually. You will need to figure out exactly what those are going to have to look like. There's a lot of tools online for doing that. Whenever I work with trusses, I usually like to use the Medeek Truss extension, just because it does a lot of that mathematical stuff for me. Now, there is a cost associated with that extension, but you can check it out by going to the link in the notes down below, and you can download Medeek Truss in order to follow along. So you can download this and give it a try with the trial version of the plugin. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to use this in order to add some scissor trusses. So my assumption on this building is that I'm going to want to use the scissor trusses just because it's going to give me more space in the middle of my building. So it'll make it a little bit taller, kind of like a high bay. So what I want to do is I just want to click on the button for Draw Truss, and I want to add a scissor truss. And so what I want to do is I just want to come in here and I just want to click on the front corner right here, and we want to make sure that this is sitting on the actual 2x12. So I'm going to pick a front corner here, and then front corner here, like this, and then we're just going to move our mouse, or we're going to set this to a length of 40 feet. And so there's a lot of different things you can do with this. Like, for example, I'm going to set my out to out span to 40. I'm going to assume that this is going to be a 6 to 12 roof. So that is going to make it a little bit taller, but that gives me a little bit more slope for things like snow. And so I'm going to set this with a 12-inch overhang. And I'm going to click on OK. And so then it's going to take me into my parameters where I can set the length and truss spacing. And I'm assuming I'm going to be able to get away with 48 inches on center. And so I'm not going to mess with any of the advanced stuff. So there are settings in here where you can like automatically add roofing, other things like that. I'm not going to worry about that for right now. I'm just going to click on OK. So what that's going to do is that's going to add my trusses in here for me. And so now we've got our trusses in here, and it gives us a total of, it looks like we've got a total of 11 trusses. And so what I want to do is I want to make sure that I jump over into my estimate and update this. So I'm just going to say 40-foot scissor truss, 11 each. And I also need to add the two 2x12s on the end, or the two 2x6s that I added as girt framing. So that's going to be plus 40 times 2. So now I've got my trusses in here. One thing that I didn't know when I did this the last time is you actually need bottom chord bracing running along these trusses. So basically what that means is that you have to brace these on the bottom to keep them from twisting. So it's something that I actually had to rent a lift and do the last time I did a building like this, which was kind of fun, but definitely an expense that I didn't want. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a 5.5 inch profile that way. And so I'm actually just going to draw this as a 3.5 inch by 1.5 inch, and then I'm just going to extrude this across like this, and we'll just call this 2x4 chord bracing. I'll make a copy over here, and I'll make a copy probably somewhere down here. I can't remember. I think I had to do 3 rows of this on the last building I did. So we're just going to call that 3 rows for right now. And we'll just add that into our estimate. So 2x4 chord bracing. We're going to say equals 40 times 3. And I'm just trying to add those pieces as I go so that I don't forget them later. And so I'm going to go into my outliner and I'm just going to group these and rename them. So I'm just trying to stay organized. So I'm just going to call this bracing. And this is something that I've been kind of bad about. It's really hard to stay disciplined about keeping everything organized because you want to just keep modeling, but it's really going to make your life easier if you do keep these organized as you go. And so now I'm going to add my purlins that go on the roof. And so what the purlins are going to do is they're going to give me somewhere to nail my metal roof panels. And so those are going to be at something like 24 inches on center. And I'm assuming those are going to have to be 2x6s. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to model that out. So 5.5. I'll just make this a component. We'll call it 2x6 purlin. Then we can just copy that using the move tool in copy mode. So I'm going to tap the control key with the move tool active. I'm going to single click. I'm going to type in a value of 24 and hit the enter key. Then I'm going to type in times, and we'll start by entering times 10, maybe times 11. We'll actually call it times 12. So that way I've got a board on this point right here. And then I'm just going to take them all. I'm going to do a shift click to select them. I'm going to use the move tool in copy mode. And I'm just going to make a copy. And I'm just going to scale this to a value of -1. Well, then I can just move this back so that it aligns with this point right here. And I'm going to take all of those. And I'm going to put them in a group. So I'm just going to make it a group, right click. I'm going to call that roof purlins. So now we've got our roof kind of figured out. And so I'm going to take that whole thing. So I'm going to take my bracing, my trusses, my purlins. I'm going to put them in a group. I'm going to call that roof. And so then over here, we can just select that roof group. We can put it on a roof layer. That way we can toggle our roof on and off. So I can get back in here and do my other work. And so another thing that we're going to need is we're going to need some headers over these big openings. And I'm assuming that I want these openings to be 10 feet tall. So I'm just going to use the tape measure tool and create guide mode. I'm just going to create a guide 10 feet off the ground. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come around to the back side here, and I'm just going to model out some 2x12s that are going to act as a header. And so I'm just going to draw a line from this point, and for now we're just going to have it stick up. That's okay. We're just going to call this 11.25 by 1.5 inches. And we'll just model this across. And in the real world, what we might do is we might just extend these up a little bit taller. So we're just going to hang them with some of those like Simpson joist hangers. But for right now, we're just going to use the move tool in copy mode to create a couple copies. And we might be able to get away with 2. I think we'll just sister them in here like that. And then do the same thing over here. So we'll just use the move tool in copy mode, copy this across. Just like this. And it looks like I might have this out of place just a little bit. So I'm just going to move it over so that we're sure these are going to be exactly the same size. And then I'm just going to come in here. I'm just going to adjust this. This is a great example of why you want to model these with components, because notice how when I made that change in one of these, the change in the other did not occur. And so that's because I modeled these as groups instead of components. So not a huge deal, but notice how I'm having to come in and change this like 4 times instead of just changing it once because I didn't model it that way. So now I've got those kind of framed in, and then over here we're going to have some kind of header over our other opening that's probably going to be, we're going to call it 7 feet high. And I'm not necessarily sure that you need 2x12s here, but we're going to go ahead and call them 2x12s for right now. So we're going to call this 11.25. And so we'll go ahead and create a copy of that right here. And let's make sure that we're adding these to our estimate. So in this case, we've got, let's see, 2 door openings that are 10 feet wide. So equals 2 times 10 times 2 plus 1 door opening that's 6 feet wide times 2. So this will give us our overall lineal footage of 2x12. Alright, so remember how I modeled this in the exact same place as my option that I had before? So what I can do is I can come in here and I can toggle that on in order to see where everything's going to be. And I can use that to lay out things like my windows. So in this case, what I want to do is I want to put my windows in here, but this equipment's kind of in the way. And so I've taken that equipment and I've put it on an equipment layer. That way I can toggle it off so I can actually see. And so what I'm going to do in this case is I'm just going to rough out the location of my window right here. And so I'm assuming I'm going to have a 4 foot by 4 foot window in here. So I'm just going to draw a 2 foot edge right here. I'm going to draw a 2 foot edge right here. And then I'll use the tape measure tool in order to draw a guide so I can see where this is going to be. So I'm assuming this is maybe going to be 3 foot 6 inches off the ground. So I'll draw a guide right here. And then I can just use inferencing to figure out where this window would go. And so for a second, I'm going to toggle that option off, and I'm just going to rough out the framing that would occur for this window. So one thing we might want to do is we might want to move this window just so it aligns with the bottom of this piece of wood. And so I'm not 100% sure how this is going to look, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to come in and we're going to add 2x6 framing all the way around the outside of it. So what I can do is I can offset this by whatever I think the width of that framing is going to be, which is going to be 1.5 inches, like this. And then I'm just going to extrude that out by whatever the depth is going to be. So in this case, maybe 5.5 inches. So that's going to give me the framing around the outside, like this. I'm going to go ahead and delete this out for right now. And so I'm just going to rough out the opening in the framing, and then if we want to get more in depth about how this actually looks, we can do that in a future video. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to cut this out along the wood like this. And then I can just erase out these edges in order to create that opening. And so I'm going to go around and do this at the other locations in my barn. Alright, so that's where I'm going to end this video. In the next video, we can talk a little bit more about adding trim and maybe closing off the ends of our building. But I'd love to hear from you on what you think about this series. So leave a comment below, let me know what you thought. If you liked this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new SketchUp content every week. If you like what I'm doing in this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Every little bit helps, so make sure you check out that link in the notes down below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.